Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Picture yourself at the zoo on a sweltering summer afternoon. An announcement crackles over the loudspeaker for the main event, the cheetah run. You squeeze in along the route, and out comes a zookeeper holding the leash of the happiest, most enthusiastic golden lab you've ever seen. She grins at the crowd and asks, "Ready to meet our cheetah, Tabitha? Think this is her?" The kids erupt, "No way!" The zookeeper laughs and introduces Minnie, the dog who's actually Tabitha's best friend. They grew up together, she explains, to help keep the cheetah calm and manageable. Whatever Minnie does, she tells everyone. Tabitha copies. First up, Minnie's turn. A raggedy pink stuffed bunny gets tied to the back of a jeep, and the lab happily chases after it, tongue flopping, tail wagging. Everyone claps and cheers. Then comes the moment everyone's been waiting for. The zookeeper opens Tabitha's cage, and suddenly there's this explosion of spotted power. The cheetah rockets out like a missile, completely locked onto that pink bunny. She crosses the finish line in a blur. The crowd goes wild. She gets a steak as her reward and tears into it right there in the dirt. But Glennon Doyle, the author, isn't clapping. She's feeling physically sick. She's watching this absolutely magnificent wild creature, day after day, chasing a ridiculous pink stuffed toy down a narrow path someone else cleared for her, never glancing left or right, settling for a supermarket steak instead of the electric thrill of an actual hunt, believing, deep down, that she's just another Labrador like her buddy Minnie. Later on, Glennon spots Tabitha in a small fenced field. Everything about her has shifted. Her head's held high now. She's pacing the perimeter, prowling back and forth, staring intensely at something far, far beyond that fence. Her daughter Tish whispers, "Mommy." She turned wild again. And right there it hits Glennon like lightning. Tabitha was born in captivity. She's never seen the wild, never experienced it. But she can feel it calling to her. She has this restless, undeniable hunch that life is meant to be bigger, more beautiful, more wide open than this narrow existence. She's a wild animal trapped in a cage, and that feeling, Glennon knows that feeling intimately. This story sits at the beating heart of Untamed, a book that sold millions of copies and sparked a genuine cultural movement. It's not just another memoir on the shelf. It's a wake-up call that grabs you by the shoulders. And here's my promise to you. By the end of our conversation today, you'll see the invisible cages that have been constructed around you by family, by culture, by society. More importantly, you'll discover you've had the keys to those cages all along. You'll start hearing a voice you might have forgotten existed, the one whispering from your deepest self, reminding you who you were before the world told you who you had to be. This is the journey from tamed to untamed. So what does being tamed actually mean? For Glennon, it started around age 10. That's the critical moment, she says, when we learn how to be good girls and real boys. It's when the world sits us down and points to our assigned cages. These are the acceptable feelings. This is how your body should look. These are the people you're allowed to love. This is the life you're supposed to want. She remembers sitting in her Catholic school classroom as a teacher explained the story of Adam and Eve. Eve, the teacher said, wanted more than she was allowed to have. She craved knowledge from the forbidden tree. Because of that hunger, she defied God, bit into the apple, and unleashed sin and suffering into the entire world. The message landed like a stone. A good girl doesn't get hungry. A good girl feels grateful for what she has and doesn't reach for more. Glennon tried desperately to be that good girl. She squeezed herself into a personality, a body type, and a faith, so impossibly small she had to hold her breath to fit. But you can only hold your breath for so long. For her, that exhale took the form of bulimia. It became the one place she could be raw and animalistic, where she could indulge her hunger and her rage. Then she'd purge it all away, because a good girl has to stay small enough to fit inside those cages. She has to hide any evidence of her hunger. This is what life looks like in captivity. It's a performance, lived for everyone except yourself. You constantly look outside yourself for answers. You poll your friends, research online, gather consensus before making decisions. It's everywhere once you notice it. Glennon tells this simple but devastating story about her son Chase having friends over. When she asks if anyone's hungry, every single boy immediately shouts yes, without even looking away from the TV. They checked in with themselves and found their answer instantly. The girls? They all freeze. They look at each other, scanning faces, silently polling the group to figure out the right answer. Finally, one designated spokesperson says politely, "We're fine, thank you." The boys looked inward. The girls looked outward. Glennon writes, "We forgot how to know when we learned how to please. This is why we live hungry." This taming isn't just about food or hunger. It's about everything. Think about something as ordinary as the shampoo bottles in your shower. Glennon walked into her kids' bathroom one day and noticed her son's side was packed with bottles practically screaming at her. Armor up, dropkick dirt, slam odor. All verbs, all commands, like he's preparing for battle. Her daughter's bottles told a completely different story. Slim, pastel, whispering adjectives in delicate script, alluring, radiant, gentle, touchable. Not a single verb, nothing to do, just a list of things to be. From the moment we wake up, we're being programmed. Boys learn to be big, bold, invulnerable conquerors. Girls learn to be small, quiet, and desirable enough to be conquered. We get shamed out of our full humanity before we even get dressed for the day. For years, Glennon lived this tamed existence. She got sober, married a man named Craig, had 3 kids, and built a successful career as a Christian mommy blogger. By every external measure, she was the perfect, good woman. She wrote a best-selling book about her happy life. And immediately after that book launched, she discovered her husband had been cheating on her throughout their entire marriage. Her world exploded. But her first reaction wasn't just heartbreak. It was rage at having her story ruined. Her husband had destroyed her narrative. So like any good writer, she decided to fix it. She'd take control of the plot. She mapped out a new story arc. Pain, followed by therapy, then forgiveness, and finally redemption. A healed, whole family. She lived that story beat by beat, then wrote about it in her next book, Love Warrior. She'd taken the wreckage and spun it into gold. Checkmate. Life. But home still felt hollow. The war was over, but what exactly had she won? She was about to launch a massive book tour, preparing to tell thousands of people a story of marital redemption that she wasn't even sure she believed anymore. Then she walked into a hotel conference room in Chicago for a pre-event dinner. She was anxious, stuck in an introvert's nightmare scenario, trying to make awkward small talk, and suddenly, the entire world stopped. She writes, "Suddenly, a woman is standing where nothingness used to be. She takes up the entire doorway, the entire room, the entire universe. Short platinum hair, long trench coat, warm half-smile, cool steel confidence radiating off her. Every cell in Glennon's body screamed, 'There she is!' Without thinking, she stood up and opened her arms. The woman, soccer legend Abby Wambach, smiled back at her. The moment was awkward, electric, completely undeniable. For the rest of that night, this powerful invisible current flowed between them. They talked about shame, about writing, about truth. And during that conversation, Glennon felt something she'd forgotten existed wake up inside her. For 30 years, she'd been twisting herself into knots to fit someone else's blueprint for what a woman should be. She'd wanted what she was trained to want. But seeing Abby, she wanted something for herself. For the very first time, it was the first genuinely original idea she'd ever had. That night, she tasted freedom, and she wanted more of it. This is the turning point. This is the moment the caged cheetah remembers what she really is. The encounter with Abby didn't just introduce a new relationship. It introduced Glennon to herself. That voice saying, "There she is," wasn't coming from heaven. It was coming from within. It was the voice of the wild girl she'd locked away at 10 years old, finally saying, "Here I am. I'm taking over now." This awakening led her to discover what she calls the 4 keys to unlocking your untamed self. These keys are the very parts of ourselves we're trained to mistrust and abandon: our emotions, our intuition, our imagination, and our courage. The first key: feel it all. For 16 years, Glennon had used food and alcohol as armor against feeling anything. Sobriety changed everything. Suddenly, she was completely exposed. Everything touched her. She became a raw nerve walking around in the world. Everything hurt. She thought she must be doing life wrong. She thought happiness was for feeling, and pain was for fixing, numbing, or hiding away. But a woman in a recovery meeting told her something that rewired her brain. You're not doing life wrong. You're doing it right. If there's any secret you're missing, it's that doing it right is just really, really hard. Feelings are for feeling. All of them. Even the brutal ones. Pain isn't something to avoid, Glennon realized. It's information. It's the fuel that drives our evolution. She tells this beautiful story about her daughter Tish, who she describes as profoundly sensitive. In kindergarten, Tish's teacher mentioned that polar bears were dying because ice caps were melting. The other kids felt sad for maybe 30 seconds, then ran out to recess. Not Tish. She was frozen, stunned into paralysis. She stayed on the bench, asking her teacher over and over, "Do the grown-ups know about this? What are they going to do?" For the next month, Tish's entire world revolved around polar bears. She couldn't let it go. One night she looked at her mom and said, "It's the polar bears now, but nobody cares. So next, it's gonna be us." And in that moment, everything clicked for Glennon. Tish wasn't broken. She was a prophet. She wasn't crazy to have her heart shattered. The rest of us were crazy for not feeling broken. Her sensitivity was her superpower. The opposite of sensitive isn't brave, Glennon writes. It's insensitive. And that's nothing to be proud of. Being fully human isn't about feeling happy all the time. It's about feeling everything. The pain won't destroy you. It will burn, absolutely, but you won't be consumed. You are fireproof. The second key: be still and know. After her husband's betrayal, Glennon was completely lost. She polled her friends for advice. She read endless articles by so-called experts. She even found herself at 3 a.m. typing into Google, "What should I do if my husband is a cheater but also an amazing dad?" She'd hit a new rock bottom. She was asking the internet to make the most important decision of her life. Why did she trust literally everyone else more than she trusted herself? A friend sent her a card with 4 words in bold letters: be still and know. Not Google frantically and know. Not poll everyone and know. Just be still. So she started an experiment. 10 minutes every day in her closet, sitting on the floor, just breathing. At first, her mind raced everywhere. Grocery lists, home decorating ideas, literally anything except stillness. But she kept showing up. Gradually, she began to sink beneath the chaotic surface of her racing thoughts. She discovered a new level inside herself, a place that was deep, quiet, and perfectly still. There, she could sense something she calls the knowing. It's not a voice exactly. It's more like a nudge, a feeling, like warm liquid gold flowing through her, guiding her toward the next right thing. Not a 5-year plan. Just the very next step. She realized that God, or wisdom, or intuition, whatever name you prefer, wasn't out there somewhere. It was in this deep place inside her. She'd been drowning on the surface, flailing and screaming for rescue, when all she needed to do was let herself sink down to where the answers lived. We're all pioneers in our own lives. There is no map for your unique journey. We have to stop asking people for directions to places they've never been. The answers are inside us. We just have to get still enough to hear them. This, she says, is the most revolutionary thing a woman can do. The next precise thing. One thing at a time, without asking permission or offering explanations to anyone. The third key, dare to imagine. When Glennon was 26, broke, actively alcoholic and bulimic, she stared at a positive pregnancy test. Every single fact of her life screamed, "No, not you, not now." But a quiet whisper inside her, her imagination, said, "Yes, me, now." She could imagine herself as a sober, thriving mother, and so that's exactly what she became. 14 years later, at that book conference, every fact of her life screamed, "No, not her. You're a Christian author famous for your traditional family values." But her imagination whispered, "Yes, her." She could imagine a love where she was completely seen and deeply cherished for exactly who she was. The facts were right in front of her face, but the truth was inside her heart. Her imagination was showing her a truer, more beautiful life than the one she was currently living. Imagination, she argues, isn't where we go to escape reality. It's where we go to remember it. It's the unseen order of things, the blueprint for our lives that we carry inside us from the beginning. Discontent is your imagination nagging at you. It's that persistent whisper of, "Not this." It's evidence that your imagination hasn't given up on you yet. But how do you actually get from "not this" to "this" instead? You have to learn your soul's native language. Our minds get programmed with the language of indoctrination: should, shouldn't, right, wrong, proper, improper. But imagination speaks differently. So instead of asking what's right or wrong, we need to ask ourselves something radically different. What is the truest, most beautiful story about my life that I can imagine? When you ask this question honestly, your imagination rises up and tells you a story. Glennon shares letters from women who tried this. One woman, drowning her life in wine, imagined a story of being present and sober, and she finally started therapy. A woman in a cold, distant marriage imagined a beautiful partnership, wrote it all down, and left it on her husband's pillow, which led them to a marriage retreat that saved their relationship. This is how revolutions begin, both personal and global. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I have a dream." Gloria Steinem said, "Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning." The truest, most beautiful life isn't necessarily an easy one, but it's yours. We can stop asking what the world demands from us and start asking what we want for our world. We can build our lives from the inside out instead of the outside in. Which brings us to the fourth and final key: let it burn. This is the hardest part. Once you feel everything, know your truth, and imagine a more beautiful life, you can't unknow it. You get launched into this terrifying abyss, the gap between the life you're currently living and the life that exists only inside you, and it's scary as hell. It's so tempting to say, You know what? Maybe this is good enough. But Glennon warns that good enough is the path to quiet desperation. Building the true and beautiful requires destroying the good enough. Rebirth means death. Your next life will always cost you this one. She had to let her old life burn to ashes. She burned the memo that said selflessness was the highest achievement for women. Selfless women make for an efficient society, she writes, but not a beautiful, true, or just one. What we actually need are women who are full of themselves. She burned the memo that presented motherhood as martyrdom. A mother's job isn't to slowly die for her children, it's to show them how to be fully, vibrantly alive. She's not a martyr, she's a model. She burned the memo that said a successful marriage is one that lasts until death, even if you're dying inside it piece by piece. She took a new vow to herself. I will not abandon myself, not ever again, me and myself. We are till death do us part. This is terrifying, absolutely. But holding on to what's no longer true is actually the riskiest move of all. It's the certain death of everything that was meant to be. After her reckoning in front of the mirror, realizing she needed to be a model for her daughter instead of a martyr, she called Abby. She said, "I'm in love with you. I'm leaving Craig. I'm telling him today." Then she sat down with her husband and told him, with tenderness but zero apology, that their marriage was complete. It had been a success for what it was, and now it was finished. Later, they sat down with their children. She looked into their terrified faces and said, "I'm about to break your hearts. Sometimes we have to do hard things because they are true things. That's what letting it burn looks like. Living this untamed life transforms everything. It changes how you relate to your own body." Glennon describes a lifetime of knowing how to be desirable, of performing a role, but never actually knowing her own desire. With Abby, for the first time ever, intimacy wasn't a performance. It was coming home to herself, naked and completely unafraid. It changes how you parent. Instead of raising her children to be safe, she now raises them to be brave. She stopped trying to protect her daughter Tish from pain, and instead taught her that she could handle whatever life threw at her. She's not a fragile egg to be protected from cracking. She is fireproof. She tells Tish, every time you're given a choice between disappointing someone else and disappointing yourself, your duty is to disappoint that someone else. Your job throughout your entire life is to disappoint as many people as it takes to avoid disappointing yourself, especially her. It even changes how you love your ex-husband's new girlfriend. Glennon writes with brutal honesty about her jealousy and insecurity when Craig's new partner enters their lives, a woman who can braid her daughter's hair in elaborate ways she never could. But she learns to see this new woman not as a replacement or a threat, but as part of a new blended, braided family structure. In one of the most moving scenes in the book, she, Abby, Craig, and his girlfriend all stand together at the finish line of a Thanksgiving race. They are a completely new kind of family, one they built without any blueprint, from the inside out. A family where everyone can be both held and free at the same time. Ultimately, being untamed means being fully human. It's choosing to stop trying to be good and starting to try to be free. It's refusing to live by the world's expectations and committing to living by your own deep knowing. It's looking at all the boxes the world tries to stuff you into, happy or sad, good or bad, straight or gay, sick or healed, and answering with the simple, powerful truth of your existence. I am. I am. I am. When you're 17, the world feels like a hurricane of expectations. Your parents, your teachers, your friends, social media, Everyone has this specific version of you they need you to be. They hand you memos about who you should become, what you should want, how you should feel, and the pressure to conform, to be the good student, the good friend, the good person, can feel absolutely crushing. What makes Untamed so powerful is that it gives you permission to set every single one of those memos on fire. It's not just another self-help book gathering dust on a shelf. It's a manifesto for reclaiming your inner life. It tells you that the most important voice you'll ever hear is your own. The central idea I keep circling back to is this fundamental shift from looking outside yourself for answers to looking inside. Think about how much of your life gets spent polling your friends about how to interpret a text message, or watching what everyone else does to figure out what you should do. Untamed argues that this habit is the root of our deepest unhappiness. It's literally how we become tamed. The story of Tabitha the cheetah is the perfect metaphor. She was born in a cage, so the cage is her entire reality. And yet something inside her, her wildness, remembers a life she's never actually lived. That feeling of restlessness, of discontent, of thinking, isn't it supposed to be more beautiful than this? That's not a sign you're ungrateful or broken. It's a sign your wild is still alive. It's your inner self, your knowing, desperately trying to get your attention. So what can you actually do with this right now, in your real life? I think it comes down to a few practical steps. First, start listening to your discontent. What's the thing in your life that makes you feel that whisper of, not this? Maybe it's a friendship that drains you dry, or a class that deadens your spirit, or a path everyone expects you to follow that just feels wrong in your bones. Don't dismiss that feeling. Honor it. It's the first clue on the treasure map, back to yourself. Second, try asking yourself that powerful question. What is the truest, most beautiful story I can imagine for my life? Don't worry about what's realistic or practical. Just ask what's true and beautiful. Your imagination isn't frivolous daydreaming, it's your soul's blueprint. Maybe the truest, most beautiful story for your friendships involves way less drama and way more genuine support. Maybe the truest story for your future doesn't follow the conventional path, but lights you up from the inside. Write it down, make it real on paper. That's the first step to making it real in the world. And third, practice being still, just 5 minutes a day. Put your phone in another room, close your eyes, and breathe. Don't try to force answers, just try to sink beneath all that noise. The goal isn't hearing some booming voice from the heavens. It's getting reacquainted with the quiet, steady feeling of your own presence. That's where the knowing lives. This book reminds you that you don't have to be a ghost, haunted by some perfect version of yourself that doesn't even exist. You don't have to be a martyr, sacrificing yourself for everyone else's comfort. You just have to be human. And being human means feeling everything, knowing your truth, imagining a better way, and having the courage to let go of whatever isn't true enough anymore. That was a summary of Untamed by Glennon Doyle. We've touched on the main ideas today, but honestly, a summary is like looking at a postcard of the Grand Canyon. It gives you a glimpse, but it can never capture the breathtaking experience of standing on the edge yourself. The real power of this book is in how Glennon's stories land in your own heart, unlocking doors you didn't even know were there. This summary is your map, but if anything we discussed today sparked something alive in you, I really encourage you to take the journey yourself. Reading the book isn't just about gathering information. It's an experience that could fundamentally transform how you see your own wild and precious life. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, Please show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing. We explore a new, life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf in every episode, and I'd be honored to have you join us as we continue growing together.